We're getting settled in here. We hope you are too.
Yep, getting all our electronics signed on and logged on. And so if you guys, as you're logging in, go ahead and put down in the comments where you're from. City, state, would be awesome, because we know we're going to have some people coming in that haven't been on KWA before.
Yeah,
so
we've got some new members.
And we also want to hear our existing members. Where are you from?
Yeah, our good old friends.
So do a shout out, city and state, in the comments as people are getting logged on. And we're getting set up here on our end.
Welcome, welcome.
I hope you got your coffee or your tea or
I've
something
got my
to
coffee.
eat.
I
got some water.
Yeah, got all that.
I got some water.
I'm trying to find us. I found a t-shirt that Brae posted, which is very cool.
Are you on the right page?
I don't know. Kingdom Writers Association.
On the like one. You gotta join
On
the group one.
All right. See, it
happens.
New
it happens.
Every time, every month, it's a new month, and it's a brand new opportunity. Oh, and look, here we are.
All right, we got Angela's got her coffee. Hi, Judy.
Michelle.
And we got
Joella. Come on,
Nicole.
Alyssa. Woo.
Alyssa,
Stephen.
welcome. Vancouver Island, Nicole. Come on.
Yeah. Southern Oregon for Joella. Got some San Diegans.
Angela's also from Oregon, I know.
Rob's here. Guten Tag, Rob.
Guten Tag.
Angela's got her coffee. I got mine. And it's yummy. Hi, Nicole.
You know,
Vancouver.
It's so much fun hanging
Island.
out with other writers. And so each month, guys, it's so, and I know we love to see each other face to face, and a lot of us can't now because we've expanded so much in other states. But Jill and I are praying that down the road, maybe in 2021, we're going to do some traveling, and we'd like to possibly visit some of the KWA members that are gathering with other writers in their community, and we would come out and have face-to-face time with a small group or a large group or whatever group that we can gather in your region or in your area, and we'd come out. So that's in the works. We're praying about it. We're planning. So join us in prayer, because we love to see people face to face. And, once this pandemic stuff clears out and we get back to, hugs and stuff and staying in the same room kind of stuff would be great.
Yeah, because virtual hugs, they just don't feel the same. So one of the cool things about that has not about the pandemic, but that has come out of the pandemic is our opportunity to expand. And maybe, what the enemy meant for destruction, God seems to flip the script on, and we get to see him be glorified in it and through it. And so next year, taking it on the road a little bit and expanding, that really came out of the situation we're in now, where we're having to be online all the time. But that online presence has allowed people from Vancouver Island and Southern Oregon and all over the world to be able to join us. And that is an incredible blessing, and we are so excited about that. Good morning, Valerie. Good morning, Jan. Come on.
Yeah. Santan Valley, Arizona. Gwendolyn,
welcome, welcome, welcome.
Gwendolyn was someone that we got to meet face to face when we went out and traveled to Arizona and New Mexico to visit family, and they contacted us saying, hey, if you're in the area and you want to stop by, and we're like, sure. So Gwendolyn, it was so awesome to have you host us for a night, and got to see her and meet her, and so it's fantastic. And so this is just a fantastic time to be alive, guys, and what God's called us to do and be as kingdom writers is incredible. And it's such a privilege and honor to be called a kingdom writer.
Yes.
And so we're excited about today. We've got Diana Glyer. She's going to be joining us in a little bit, in a few minutes, and we're going to be talking about the Inklings, Oxford, writing, all kinds of stuff, and just about community and the importance of community, which is fantastic. And Diana is amazing. She's a professor, teacher at Azusa Pacific University here, and and she's written a few books, and she's amazing. So we're blessed to have her coming on board with us. So
Yeah.
So Jill's gonna kick everything off with an intro, and then we're gonna do a couple announcements, and then Diana will be joining us.
Ready, Freddie?
I'm ready.
That's really Brae's main character in his new book is called Freddie.
Yeah, the embalmer, the main character is Freddie. So.
And it's not really about him. So, but that was our inside now outside joke for you all. Okay, so I really wanted to talk about every time I intro, I like to encourage you in your pursuit.
What? You like to encourage
that's
us?
my thing. I like to encourage you in your pursuit. And many times I give you the lowdown on another author and things that have transpired from his works or her works. And I'm going to do the same today. So as a great encouragement to you about how your words impact others, I want to give you a little story about Dietrich Bonhoeffer. So Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who many of you know, was imprisoned in a Nazi camp, and he had really a lot to say. He was a theologian and an amazing Christian man who had a lot to say, and because of that, he was actually imprisoned. But before he was imprisoned by the Nazis, he became engaged to a woman named Maria. And in prison, he was able to write. And one of the things he wrote was a poem to Maria, and it was called New Year 1945. And in it, he wanted to encourage her about the upcoming year and to give her hope about the year, despite the dark times that they were in and the danger that they were in, that they could trust God. Yeah. And so he wrote this poem, and I'm going to read you 2 of the 7 stanzas, just to give you an idea. While all the powers of good aid and attend us, boldly we'll face the future, be it what may. At even and at morn, God will befriend us, and oh, most surely on each New Year's Day. Should it be ours to drain the cup of grieving, even to the dregs of pain, at thy command we will not falter, thankfully receiving all that is given by thy loving hand. And so this is the poem part of the poem that he wrote to his beloved Maria. And unfortunately, he did not get to see New Year 1945, the fullness of it. I believe he died and he was killed in April, I believe, of that next year. And so years later, Maria, she published all his writings. Okay. And so this poem was published. So years later in America, there was an author named Joseph Bailey he himself went through a series of just unspeakable tragedies. He had a 5-year-old die of leukemia. He had an 18-day-old infant who died, and his 18-year-old son, who was engaged to be married, died in a tragic sledding accident. So as an author, he lost all desire to write, as you can imagine. Well, his son's fiance had seen this poem from Bonhoeffer and sent it to him. And after reading it, it encouraged him and enabled him to write again. And he wrote
Wow.
several more books, one of which was on heaven. I don't know if I have the exact name of the book. I don't, but it was on heaven, and because his sons were in heaven, this is a book he wrote about heaven to encourage those who had gone through things that he had gone through. And it was interesting just to note that Bonhoeffer had no idea that his works would be published, that his works would affect this author in America so far away, that would be experiencing his own dark times, and that this author would then write a book to help others and encourage others and give them hope in their dark times. So fast forward again, 12 years later, and a pastor from Boston mails a letter to Mr. Bailey, the author. And he says, I'm a hospital chaplain, and I go around and pray and talk with those who are dying of cancer in this hospital in Boston. And I had met this wonderful woman, and over the few days we had experienced a deep fondness for each other, just a beautiful relationship. And as she was dying, I was encouraging her. And he said, I decided to give her this book to encourage her. This book that I read by a man named, is it Joseph Bailey, by a man named Joseph Bailey. And it was about heaven. And I went to her the next day to see how she was doing. And she had read the book overnight. And she said it had changed everything for her. This was a woman who had come to America. And she had experienced a couple of divorces, and though she was successful in her career, she had felt like her life was a disappointment. And here she was on the verge of dying, and she read this book, and in it was the poem by Bonhoeffer, and it changed everything for her. And she went into eternity filled with hope, and her name was Maria.
Wow.
She was Bonhoeffer's Maria.
You can't make this stuff up, like what God does with our writings.
Yeah, I'd have to take a moment for that one.
Wow. Like, you guys, like the writings that you have, that you're leaving behind, are going to affect people, that God's going to orchestrate who those writings need to get to. And
it's just, it's amazing. It's amazing. So here, this poem that he wrote in the midst of his suffering, but he saw hope, right? He saw hope. And he wrote hope, and he wrote encouragement. And this poem came back full circle to the woman he loved. Full circle to the woman he loved. And how many others did it affect on the way? And this is the power of writing with God and for God. He breathes life into your writings. He breathes life into you as you write, and he breathes life into what you're writing. And then he breathes life into those who are reading it. And it's amazing. It's amazing. So I bless you to know the power of your words, and the power of your words with Holy Spirit in them.
Wow.
And I bless you to know that what you write can very well be a matter of life and death to others. Write as if lives depend on it, because they do.
They do.
They do.
They do.
And it doesn't. Yeah. And this is a very extreme, I know, example, but it would work the same if you were writing a fantasy action adventure. Right?
Come on.
It does. And
right, with the joy of the Lord.
You've experienced that. You've experienced young people come up to you who are so moved by the fact that
a
vampire could be saved. You know what I mean? I mean, just
that's the power that God has through your writing and your words, guys.
That's the power of your words. So I encourage you with that, no matter what the genre you are writing, God breathes life on it, and you will impact others.
Yeah.
And that's why we do this. That is kingdom. That's why we do this, not for the glory, not for our glory or our fame, but for His glory, His fame. And yeah, that's why we do it. So welcome to Kingdom Writers Association.
Welcome.
We're so excited to have our old timers here who we love and long to see, and our new members here who we love and long to see, and we long
welcome,
to get
everybody.
to know you.
Welcome.
And we welcome you to Kingdom Writers Association. Brae Wyckoff, if you're joining a little bit late, is the head honcho with the poncho.
Is that my title? Head honcho with the poncho.
He's director, and I'm Jill. I'm assistant, and
don't let her fool you. She's the director.
No, nor do I want to be. I think he does a fabulous job, and I know you all do too.
If I'm the head, she's the neck.
Well, that could be true. What a great line that was, right? And the neck turns the head any way she wants to. Okay, ding, 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 if you can name that movie.
My Big Factory Wedding.
Oh, ding, 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 you got
it. I just announced it. That was so good.
Okay, so Kingdom Writers Association, we're here to equip and empower and encourage you as writers, no matter what you are writing, no matter or what genre you're writing, let me clarify. And no matter if you're writing for a book or a play or a song, a blog, if you're a journalist, what you're writing, we want to encourage you with that and just see you run in your identity as writers for God. And no matter where you are in the process of writing, whether you're just beginning or whether you've already published or whether you're writing your third, fourth, or fifth book.
Or you're even thinking about writing.
Or you're thinking about writing, or someone has given you a prophetic word.
Yeah.
And you're like, could this be so?
I see a book in you.
And we say, yes, it could be so. And yes, it will be so, as long as you put pen to paper or, fingers to keypad. And that's what we're here to help you along. We have our monthly gatherings right now online, second Saturday of the month. And then we have workshops. So kingdomwritersassociation.com has all the news. You can look at the workshops, you can look at the retreats, you can look at the events, you can look at resources. We have resources, and we like to post our members' publications. So let us know if you have a published work and you're a member. We want to post that as well in our resource page. And what am I forgetting? Am I forgetting anything? If I forget something, I'll remember it later.
See,
and I'll come back to you.
I'm just moving my neck.
And we like to have fun, and we love community. And here we are, we're gathered online. And when we do gather together, we get to have time to just talk to one another and see what we're writing. And we have this page, so you can on Facebook, and you can talk to each other even on Facebook. Please feel free to do that. Interact. We love that.
Ask questions.
Post your thoughts, ask your questions. Let's create this community even online for now. Until we can gather together.
And be a Kingdom Writer evangelist. There's other people out there looking for a group like this.
Right.
And so you reach out to those that you know are writing and say, come on, check this out. And be a part of this growing community where we want to empower, equip, and encourage everyone coming on board their writing assignment given by God to reach more people for Christ. That's what it's all about.
That's what it's all about. And here at KWA, we always champion one another. So there's no comparison, because comparison is a bunch of hooey. And it doesn't make
Jill
sense.
comes up with some really good words.
It doesn't make sense because God made us so unique, and our voice is so unique. And if we don't express what he looks like through us, then that part of him never gets seen. So that's the reason we got our unique fingerprints, right? We are so unique. What we have to say, even if it's the same genre, even if it's the same subject, will not come off like somebody else, because we are so unique and we carry that part of his heart that needs to be revealed. And in that way, comparison makes absolutely no sense. It's about diversity, not comparison. So we champion everyone. We are so excited, because when someone excels, it's a win for the kingdom. And a win for the kingdom is a win for everyone. Right? So we champion one another, we celebrate one another's successes, and that's what we're all about here as a community. And it's a beautiful thing.
So we're going to celebrate somebody, a KWA member, Ryan Moore, just got his proof copy for his gym membership sales book. So here, this is it, guys. You got a kingdom writer writing a membership sales book for gym owners and how to increase their memberships and all of that. I'm not sure, I haven't talked to Ryan if he's mentioned God in any part of his book, but I know his faith is woven in and throughout it, and the fact that he is talking to gym owners through the vehicle of his book, and he's talking about his faith. And so he is representing the king and the kingdom well, and he's reaching more people for Christ. And he's got a tool, this book, that's giving him opportunities to talk to people and to build their faith.
He's using biblical foundations for growing businesses, which is really exciting.
So shout out to Ryan, and good job, Ryan, getting that out. And what you're doing is amazing. And it's an encouragement to all of us that we can reach more people for Christ, even through simple books like that. Not simple, but you know what I mean? It's not like revelatory, or not a composition of what this one scripture means. It's not a devotional. It's not something like that. It's something that is for the business, for the marketplace.
And everyone, this is what I say, is everyone has their own voice. So for you, your heart might be to do a devotional and that kind of thing, because that's what God put on you. For Ryan, Ryan's passion, God put on him
to build businesses.
And especially he loves, he's a trainer, right? A physical trainer, and so that's his passion. And so God gifts him with this, and then allows him to write to his passions. And this is where we all need to get into the game. This is where every one of us has an impact. It's very exciting.
So guys, if you want to become a Kingdom Writers Association member, you can go to our website, kingdomwritersassociation.com. It's $60 for an entire year. It gives you 50% off on our workshops. We have 4 workshops right now, a couple of them on publishing, step-by-step publishing with Amazon, self-publishing, and then we have an ins and outs of self-publishing, where I really go into the broad teaching of all the puzzle pieces for the publishing industry.
It's so good.
It's a very confusing network, but once you start isolating the puzzle pieces and understanding where they fit, everything starts coming into place for you guys. So those are 2 great workshops. There's another one, author platform building. Basically, it's building your resume as an author, and there's some marketing tips in there as well. And then there's one for those wanting to write children's books. So I have a children's writers workshop, and we'll have more workshops coming. KWA members also have a private Facebook group page besides this one. It's called KWA Members Only, and there's some additional training videos that I do there, about 10-minute videos, anywhere from dialogue to how to get endorsements for your book, etc.
You know what the fun thing too is about this is when Brae does these videos online for you, the workshops, and they're recorded, is, I don't know about you, but I've gone to I've gone to conferences and and workshops, and I've written all the notes, and then I go back and read my notes and I go, oh gosh, I forgot that point, or this isn't, what am I?
Yep.
And with the videos, you can play them again.
Yeah.
You can play them again and again and again and get all of this meat into your bones.
Yeah.
Which is a really cool thing.
Yeah.
And same with the Facebook, the members group page that you post these little wonderful little tidbits on. And you can, even if you missed it for the day, you just go into the video section or you scroll down and you can see them and play them as many times as you want.
At the end of this month, guys, I'm doing a free workshop. It'll be on this page, the Kingdom Writers Association group page. It's all about storytelling and plot crafting. I'm going to go through the hero's journey with you guys. So that's going to be free for everyone. So I encourage you to be a part of that. That's August 29th. It's a Saturday morning at 9 o'clock in the morning Pacific time. And that's free.
I like free.
Free is good.
It's good.
And so we're excited to do that for you guys and to reach more people. So let other people know. We've got an event page for that to advertise it. Guys, we have an Idlewild retreat here in our local mountains here in San Diego. A place called Idlewild that we go to. It's a mountaintop experience. It's a retreat, or what we call an advance, because God says we don't retreat from anything. I want you to advance. So it's an Idlewild advance, November 5th to the 7th. We've got several people already registered, a couple people flying in. So we're excited about that. You can go to the website to learn more about that. And there's also an event page for more information.
People who've attended in the past say it's life-changing.
Yeah.
Life-changing, and has altered the way they write and what they're writing. And it's powerful.
Yeah. It's fun, guys. It's a real
and fun.
blast. Yeah, I don't do anything if it's
we
not
like
fun.
to have fun, if you haven't guessed that yet.
Our next gathering online will be, we always have our gathering on the second Saturday of each month. So our next gathering will be September 12th. Mark your calendars for our next KWA gathering, September 12th. And we have another exciting guest speaker with us. We had Lynn Vincent last month. You can watch the recording with Lynn. Today we have Diana Glyer. I'm going to get into her bio in a second. She's going to be calling in a minute. And then next month we've got Dr. Mark Stibbe from the UK. He is a wonderful speaker and friend of ours. We met him in Oxford in 2017. And him and his wife Cherith, and they're amazing.
Brilliant.
New York Times has said he's an acclaimed Christian author. He's a professional writer with over 50 books, guys, published, and countless articles and magazines and journals and etc. So we're excited to have Mark on there. The other thing is his dad was mentored by C.S. Lewis. So that's fantastic. Just what's it running in his generational momentum for him. So you don't want to miss that, September 12th with Dr. Mark Stibbe. And then today, guys, it's so privileged to have Diana with us. I'm going to read her bio. Diana Glyer teaches at Azusa Pacific University. She is an award-winning writer who has spent more than 40 years combing through archives and studying old manuscripts. She is a leading expert on C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien. Her book, The Company They Keep, changed the way we talk about these writers. Get this, guys. Her scholarship, her teaching, and her work as an artist all circle back to one common theme: creativity thrives in community. That is amazing. I love it. You can check out Diana's books and all about her at her website, DianaGlyer.com, and Glyer is spelled Glyer. DianaGlyer.com, and Diana is with one N, not two. And Diana is joining us right now. And there she is.
Hello, how are you?
Doing great,
Good.
Diana. I
Good.
know you were watching, I think, online with us, and we were just reading your bio and introducing you. So perfect
Awesome.
timing.
Thank you.
Just an awesome time to have you here with us. Just to let everybody know, I stalked Diana for a few months. I was emailing her. She's like, "Who is this nutcase? I don't know what's going on."
Yeah.
And I get it, because we all get those emails and we have to, vet everybody.
Yeah. You know, Brae, I'm really sad because we were supposed to be meeting this week in Oxford, and here we are in our virtual environment. We don't get to actually see one another face to face. But I just kept on thinking, what if we were in Headington Quarry, walking up Kiln Lane, headed to C.S. Lewis's house and getting ready to talk about Lewis and Tolkien and the Inklings right in Lewis's own garden. So that's my dream, that it won't be too many years before we can actually make that dream a reality.
Yeah.
2021. Let's do it next year.
We're praying for next year. This year we had to cancel. Literally, we would have been flying home today from Oxford, and Diana and our group that we were going with, and she had a speaking engagement there for the Oxfordshire or whatever.
It's the C.S. Lewis Foundation, and they sponsor a big event every 3 years that incorporates worship and art and great speakers. And I was privileged to be kind of sharing the pulpit there with Os Guinness, a name that you might know.
Oh my God.
Talking there in Oxford, and sadly that event has been postponed for a year. But we're all praying that things will heal, and we'll kind of get back on track with some of the things we long for. But aren't you excited about some of the opportunities that God is opening for us, not despite the pandemic, but because of these restrictions? I am encouraged to keep my eyes on the possibilities,
Oh yeah, it's just an incredible time for writers, and just what's happening. And you know what, it's funny that there's so much that the enemy that's trying to push isolation and keeping us away from each other is actually growing our strength and our commitment to getting back to community so much more stronger. And we're going to celebrate big time when we can all get together in the same room together. And
But even like, as you say, we have people on right now who are watching this from other states who would not have been here potentially if we had not gone online because of the pandemic. And so we're so excited. We're seeing, people from all over join us, and we love that. We love that.
Here's the cool thing about this particular season of our lives is that we're not only developing more breadth because we can reach out and reach into places and connect with people far away. We're also developing deep roots. Haven't you found that? Deep in terms of our habits as writers, in terms of our understanding of our own creative process, and in terms of the privilege of time to sit and listen to the Lord, to discern more clearly what it is that God is up to in our creative lives. And so there are opportunities here to be seized, aren't there?
Absolutely.
Definitely.
So good.
So Diana, it's just a true honor to have you here with us today. And we know that you're a teacher at
Yes, I am. I'm a professor at Azusa Pacific University in the Honors College there. And that means that I'm part of a great works program where we wrestle with the biggest questions of life. What is truth? What is goodness? What is beauty? Why am I here? What does God have for me? And we do it informed by the greatest works that have ever been written by authors from all cultures and all time periods, trying to glean the best of that wisdom for us today.
That is awesome. And so what got you hooked on the Inklings? How did that all come about? You're a leading expert now in C.S. Lewis and J.R. Tolkien.
Yeah. So I discovered Tolkien when I was in high school. So I went to high school during the time when the Lord of the Rings was really kind of a craze, and my friends were all reading it, so I decided to read it too. And I have to tell you, getting into Lord of the Rings at first was kind of hard. That book, there's a lot going on there, and there is a deliberate pace that Tolkien sets in order to immerse us in his sub-created world. And I'd never seen anything like it. So, but once I got into it, wow, I just got, I was blown away by that book. I discovered C.S. Lewis and his science fiction trilogy also while I was in high school. And they became my two favorite authors. And so then I discovered that they were friends, and it was absolutely one of the most mind-blowing ideas. It was like discovering that Shakespeare and, you know, I don't know, Stephen King were friends or something. I mean, it just like, it was like mind-boggling that not only did they live at the same time and live in the same place, but they were close friends and colleagues.
Yeah.
And at that time, still in high school, I became, I guess you could say obsessed, but maybe enchanted is a better word, with two really big questions. The first question is one I think that every C.S. Lewis or J.R.R. Tolkien fan has become enchanted with, and that's this question. What would it be like to eavesdrop on a conversation between C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien?
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah, exactly. I want to be there.
Yeah, I want to be there. I want to be at the table next to them at the Eagle and Child pub. And I just want to be listening in to that incredible conversation. So that was my first question. What did they say to each other? What was those conversations like? What would it be like to be a fly on the wall in Lewis's rooms at Magdalen College, or at the Eagle and Child pub where they had the more informal, the broader, more open groups, group meetings and group times? And the second question was this, because I'm an artist, Jill, I'm always so appreciative that you bring in the visual arts to what we do as writers. So I'm an artist, I'm a potter and sculptor, and I also do a little bit of painting. Painting is, you know, forgive me, Brae, but painting is my hobby. You know?
Oh, yeah. That's my painting's my hobby too.
Okay. I know that you say a lot of things about hobbies that aren't so happy, but I you know,
Writing is not a hobby.
So here's the thing about painting is I know I'm not any good at it, but it gives me joy.
Yeah.
You know, it gives me joy. So I do it out of a place of joy. But what I really love is I like working with clay and throwing, doing ceramics. So, you know,
cool.
Love that.
Making pots is what I love. So, where was I going with all this? So back to the Inklings. So I was interested in knowing what they said, but the second question that came up, because I am an artist and I am a writer, have always been a writer, you know, since I was a little kid, writing stories in my notebook, you know.
Yeah.
My question was, what difference did these conversations make to the creative lives they were living? Because I had some kind of an insight or an instinct to really understand that if they were as successful as they were, it had to have something to do with the way that they interacted with each other, you know?
Yeah.
Creative works aren't created in a vacuum. God creates ex nihilo. We create out of the riches of the environment where we live. So I wanted to know how this friendship shaped their creative work. And one of the first things I discovered is that if you look at their bibliographies, the lists of books that they've written and published, you look at what they wrote before they connected, and you look at the list of things after they connected.
Wow.
If I were to name the articles and the books that Tolkien wrote and published, or that Lewis wrote and published before they got together, you wouldn't recognize most of it. And if you did recognize it and had ever looked at it, you'd know why it never gave them any fame. It was a beginning. It was a start. They were working to put their faith and their understanding into language, but they weren't particularly successful as authors. But after they connect, that's when we see all of this flowering of the creative work that they did. So I became interested in them, and I became very interested in the group that they gathered around them. So the group that we know as the Inklings started with just the simplest decision that any creative person can make. And that's simply to make a decision to connect faithfully with one other person on a regular basis to share what you're up to those days, you know? So they were part of a group and knew each other from school, and they decided that they were going to get together to have lunch one day a week. How simple is that? You know?
Yeah.
How inspiring is that example? So when we think about the inspiration of Lewis Tolkien and the Inklings, we always want to go to the big thing. We're going to write The Lord of the Rings and Amazon is going to pick it up, right?
Right.
Yes.
You know, and how does that happen? That happens because two very ordinary professors got together and then were able, as iron sharpens iron, as enthusiasm builds, as empowerment and blessing flows, they were able to begin to launch out into the incredible work that they finally completed. Yeah. And so they gathered around them these other individuals and started the habit of this larger group, meeting regularly, meeting on Thursday nights to share their work in process and to give one another feedback on that writing. And that changed everything.
Everything.
Yeah, so I got interested when I was still in high school and then began work on researching and writing the inner workings of this creative group.
Yeah. And I know, you know, that your first book, The Company They Keep, but this book right here, Bandersnatch, if anyone can see that, is incredible. This is one of my favorite books out of all of the books out there for talking about the Inklings and C.S. Lewis and J.R. Tolkien, because the other ones were great informational resources and there's a lot of history and they're fantastic. But this one, you touched on the community side of things. You touched on the interaction with them as people, right? And which I didn't get with the other ones. And this is like a required reading for me. When I take people to Oxford, I say everyone's got to read this. And I suggest even now with our KWA members, you guys need to pick this book up.
Oh, thanks.
It's just fantastic because it talks about the resonator. And when you bring that out, and if you can talk a little bit about the resonator and what that means, that's huge for us as writers and creatives.
Well, thank you for encouraging people in terms of Bandersnatch, and I love a chance to talk about that book because that book is motivated by a third question. As you can tell, a lot of my writing and scholarship is motivated by the fact that I think I'm a good student, and that's what makes me a good teacher. I love learning things, you know, I love asking great questions. And so Bandersnatch came quite a bit after The Company They Keep, and it tried to answer the question, what can we learn from their example? And so I tried to be as practical as possible. What can we as creative people learn from the example of Lewis Tolkien and the Inklings? And so you'll notice in that book, at the end of each chapter, there's a little box that basically has the takeaways, very specific, very practical. And then there's a whole chapter at the end, you'll remember, doing what they did. And
I love it.
So I just think that's really important. We all need mentors. And the good news is our mentors don't have to necessarily be only people that we know. We can have mentors from the past. And by looking not only at what they did, but how they did it, we can learn a great deal from their example. And that's what Bandersnatch does. So as I was working on that book and also a little bit on my work on Company They Keep, I was frustrated by one misconception that is so common when people think about writers' groups. So when I say writers' groups, what most people think is that you're looking at written text that has already been produced, and you're looking for weakness, error, mistakes, problems. So when I talk to people, it's like, you need a group. One of the things that they'll say is, I can't share my stuff, emphasis on the stuff, right? And I don't want someone ripping me apart. Right? Exactly. And so I would say one of the things that I am most emphatic about when I'm trying to talk about writers' groups is we're not always looking at the work. We're looking at each other. And we're not looking to critique. We're looking to cultivate a whole range of habits whereby we can empower, encourage, and support one another. Jill, your time as you're opening these meetings on Saturdays are all about that empowerment. You are blessing and releasing people into their giftings. And we need that because the spirit of the world and the persistence that's necessary for us to do really quality work is very hard to sustain
Yeah.
It really is. It's swimming upstream. It's overcoming obstacles. And we need to constantly have people in our life who are there for us, who are speaking into our hearts and encouraging us. So the idea of a resonating it is one of my favorite concepts, because the idea of a resonator is somebody who fundamentally understands what it is you're attempting and commits to companioning with you to get that thing done.
Yeah.
Right? So fundamentally understands what you're attempting. So one of the places where we need resonators the most is when we have a little tiny baby brand new idea, you know?
Yep.
And you've been there. I know you guys have been there, and I bet that a lot of the people who are tuning in have been there. You just have this little whisper of a notion that maybe you should try writing something that you haven't tried before.
Exactly.
And it's so faint and it's so small. And so I call up my friend Jill and I say, Jill, this sounds crazy, but I'm just feeling this sense that perhaps I'm to branch out in this new area or attempt this kind of a work that I haven't done before. What do you think? Am I crazy? Am I discerning correctly?
Yeah.
This just seems impossible for me. I remember a time in my own writing group when one of the members came to the group. He was an award-winning fiction writer. He had been incredibly successful with fiction after fiction after. He came to our writers group one week and he said, you guys, the Holy Spirit is nagging me with the possibility of writing a nonfiction book. And he said, this can't be right. Is it possible that I could do such a thing? I think he's finished his 5th nonfiction book at this point. But see, he needed a place.
Yeah.
He could bring that little idea, and the rest of us could join him in that discernment process, right? And affirm and say, yeah, we're with you. And not only do we get it, we are, to resonate means to vibrate at the same frequency, right? We get it. We get what you're saying. But also, we're here to help you through those processes. So week after week, our group is not a critique group. We do no critique whatsoever in my writers group. It's all about sharing our struggles, talking about where we're stuck, empathizing with our weakness, encouraging where people are discouraged, and then specifically praying for what it is that we need God to do in the specific circumstance that we're in. So being a resonator is a great big category of things that we all need. And again, we need it especially when we're in long-term projects, things that take a while. Brae, I know that you wrote a novel in 34 days.
That's a first.
The first one took 20 years,
it's my 8th book. It's one of those things where you just feel the Lord's on it and you just go. And
sometimes things are like that. They have a period of gestation, right? They sort of sit and we sort of work with them, but then when they're ready, it's just writing as fast as we can to catch it.
And I did sit on this book for a few years. This was a book I was kicking around in my head and just pondering and talking to people about. And finally it was like, okay, July 1st, let's go.
Great. We in my writing group, we have a concept that's been very helpful for us. We talk about things being under the chicken. And so we have ceramic chickens, literally. And we talk about how we can sometimes it's not time to start a project yet, but we know there will be a time. It's under the chicken until it's ready to hatch. Sometimes we have a project like what you said, you're kind of tinkering with it. C.S. Lewis did this all the time. He would tinker with things for decades till We Have Faces was something that was in his mind from teenage years. Even Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe started as a picture. And it was a long time before he decided to try to write a book. It was under the chicken until it was the right time for him to be ready to bring that forth. Right. And so that's a concept that we use. But if there's one thing that people come away with from chatting today, it's the idea that we need people in all the stages of our writing process. yes, we need critique after a draft. We need beta readers. We need feedback. We need people who will give us an honest assessment and help us not only to make the work better, but also to help us become better writers.
Right.
And the most important thing is the writer again, not the work, right? How do we actually call forth our best in our skill and our gifts? But there's so many stages before that of development. Think about Tolkien. Think about him week after week for more than 15 years, bringing parts of the story to that Thursday night group. Now, part of what that creates, of course, is accountability.
Right.
And you may have heard me say, I actually don't like the word accountability because that sounds like I'm going to get a scolding, you know?
Yes,
You didn't measure up, you know?
I don't like it either.
What I like is the word expectation. So we need people in our lives that will have for us a sense of expectation. You know, I remember when my mom used to call, she was living in Ohio at the time, and she would call and she would say, how's that book coming along? Well, my mom is not a writer, doesn't understand anything about the writing process, but she had faith in me that I was doing something important. And the company they keep took me 23 years to write.
Wow.
And throughout those years, my mom would call and I would get a, how's that book coming? With a sense of eager anticipation that even if I was discouraged, she'd be able to encourage me in the next steps of that project. That's persistent, but we need a network of folks in our lives. It's what you do through Kingdom Writers, is providing support every stage of the way. And that makes me so happy because that's a vision that I think people need to catch.
Yeah. And I think, Diana, I feel in with the Lord right now that what you're releasing is permission for others that are hearing this around the world and around the United States to start gathering themselves with one person. Just start with one other person.
Right.
And get together and talk about your writing. Just encourage one another. What is that calling that you've received by God? And that because KWA can't be everything for everybody.
Right.
And it's okay to have multiple groups.
Yes.
And the Inklings, C.S. Lewis and Tolkien had multiple groups that they went to. It wasn't just the Inklings.
Right.
So I just feel like what you're releasing right now over people is the permission granted to seek out that other person, which will build into a group of 4, 5, 6, 10 people ultimately, where you can meet face to face, but also you can meet virtually. Like you can get online like this and a Zoom call and encourage one another.
The reality of it is also you don't have to have a prerequisite of having a published book.
No.
Your mom was a great resonator and she wasn't even a writer. So if you are in the process of writing or that's your passion and you want to step in and you can encourage others in the same time, do so.
Yes, absolutely. So you're exactly right. I hear all the time as I travel and talk about the Inklings, everybody says, oh gosh, I wish I could join an Inklings group. And they think that they're either going to find a group that exists and then attach themselves to it, or they're going to put out a call, let's get 17 people together, you know, and then we'll be the Inklings, you know, and that doesn't work because that's not how it worked for the Inklings. It was just two guys who said, you're a writer, I'm a writer. You got stuff you're doing, I got stuff I'm doing. Let's get together once a week and talk about that stuff.
Exactly.
It's so simple. And then when Warren Lewis retired from the military, he got pulled in. Another friend, Ari Havard, you know, he was kind of around and they started talking poetry and Lewis said, well, why don't you come and join us? And it grows organically and slowly as the group develops its own kinds of habits and customs. Can I tell you about one of the most powerful things that I've been experiencing lately along these lines in terms of a simple step that has profound results? I've been stuck. I've been working on a project for several years now, and it's been hard. I have to tell you, you know, all these published books and all these successes, and I'm working on a project, and it is gut-wrenching to try to just even move the project forward half an inch. Here's what I started to do, even during the pandemic. I have a friend who's also in kind of a tough spot with a project he's working on, completely different from mine. But we made a commitment. We get together once a week and we go for a walk. Well, for one thing, going outside, moving, fresh air, there's something very freeing about a conversation. When you're in person, you're outside. So we go for a walk just in the neighborhoods near here. So no big deal, nothing fancy. I put on my running shoes and we go for a long walk. And it's very simple. We just ask, how'd this week go? Successes, failures, frustrations, what are you working on now? And then what do you hope to accomplish by the next time we meet? We talk about that as being our sticky note. So we'll say, what's your sticky note for tomorrow? What's your idea for next week? Because we find that we make progress best when we have a really precise and specific goal. So what's your sticky note? And I'll say, well, my sticky note is to revise 20 pages of this manuscript. And if I can get that done by the next time we meet, it'll take a miracle.
But yeah, you need to have those goals.
And then the next time we get together, we talked about expectation. I know that the next time we go for our walk, he's going to ask, how'd that go? How'd those 20 pages go? And if I fail, I know he's going to be there to dust me off and get me back on my feet. And if I got some done, I know he's going to be there to cheer me on because something's way better than nothing.
Right.
And if I met that goal, well, glory, it is a witness that God is up to something special in our lives. So simple. We don't read each other's stuff. We don't read it out loud to each other. This is not a critique group, but once a week we go for a walk. And that keeps me faithful in the rhythm, step by step, literally, doing the thing that's so hard that, I don't want to do it.
Right. That's so good.
It is so good.
Yeah.
And it's the simple thing like that is so powerful that you can get together with a friend and help each other. And I mean, that's so biblical, right? When Jesus sent people out 2 by 2, there was so much reason behind that. And I've preached this in the past with KWA, like, hey, I feel like God's sending us out 2 by 2. Get together with somebody, go have coffee with them, share your writing, sit next to each other and write together, whether you're talking or not. But just that being together and doing something like that it does something. It affects things inside each one of those people.
Yeah, you're exactly right. This idea of getting together and writing on your individual projects in the same time is another incredibly powerful thing that I have found. So that's called parallel play. The professor word for that is parallel play. And it comes from the study of toddlers. And if you've ever seen a bunch of toddlers in a sandbox, they don't play with each other. They don't know how to do that yet. They haven't learned the social skills to do that. They're playing with their own truck and their own, pail and so forth in different corners, but it's very important that they're in the same space. So parallel play is very easy by Zoom. And I have found it to be incredibly fruitful to get together. Again, whenever my writing time is, I might call my friend and say, I'm going to be writing on Thursday from 8 to noon. Do you want to parallel play? And so we get on, we say a quick prayer together, and we work on our individual projects, but we're both together on Zoom.
Wow, that's awesome.
What's the power of that? I don't really understand it, except that in the most simple and practical terms, I'm not going to get up and go look at Facebook if I know she's sitting there.
Right.
I'm not going to get up and see if there are interesting snacks in the fridge. Or that sale at Kohl's, I think today's the last day, so I better just check on there right quick to see. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't do that when she's sitting there because that'd be too embarrassing. And the same for me. She stays. And then that keeps us on track during the hour, 2 hours, 2.5 hours that we're doing. And both of us find that those are some of the most productive hours of our week.
Yeah.
When we set aside time for parallel play. It's a simple thing. It's free. It is so powerful. And it's one of the ways we can support and help each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now I have something that I didn't know what it was called, parallel play.
Parallel play.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So Diana, tell how many Inklings were there and how long did they meet? And what was ultimately, why did it end?
Okay, so there were most of the lists will tell you there were 19 people who are considered official members of the group. Now, that's always hard because while they did have a process for like voting on members, the membership was actually fairly loose.
Yeah.
And some people would only attend for one season of the group. People would rotate in and then rotate out depending on jobs and moving and lots of things like that. Or people would kind of come very occasionally. Owen Barfield's an example of somebody who came, but very occasionally. He lived in London. He would come when he could, but it might be just once in a year, but he was still considered a core member of the group. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, that is
groups
interesting.
like the Inklings, we always think they have to be like, you have to have a commitment and be there every time. It's like, nope. Yeah. There were 19 members, but on a typical Thursday, only 4 or 5 people would show up.
Interesting.
And it was, people gave one another permission to not be there if it wasn't, a good time for them. And so no problem with that. You want to come once a month? Great. You want to come once every 6 months? We love you. We just love it when you show up. With my writing group, it's also been helpful to tell people, come for just the dinner and then leave if you must, or come for just an hour and get some prayer and take off. You're welcome to drop in for as much as we would have the privilege of seeing you.
Yeah.
So that's the group. They met for about 17 years. They started in, I put their start in December of 1929, with the interaction of Lewis and Tolkien. Why did the group end? That's always an interesting question, because the question that I think is more important is how did they last as long as they did?
Yeah,
True.
right. True.
You know? So here's something that's really helpful to remember. The average writing group that has a focus on critique, in other words, where they're sharing their finished work and asking for feedback style writing groups, generally last 5 or 6 years if they're healthy.
Okay.
And then there's shifts, there's changes. People's family changes, their work changes, and the group just no longer has the critical mass to continue. When that happens, that's successful. That's really okay. By the way, another thing that's really helpful is what I call a task group. So you've just finished a novel, Brae. Maybe you want to get together a task group for a time and just ask, can I get you guys together? Can we go 3 months? Can we read this out loud together and do some really fine tuning of this story? Would you come alongside on my team just for this task? And then when you have a task, let me know and I'll join your task team. So a task team that lasts 2 months or 3 months or 1 month or even one meeting. So you can imagine, you've got a new novel and you want to brainstorm title, subtitle, and Amazon descriptions. Right? And so can we get together for an evening or can we get together on a Zoom call? And can we just sit around with a big sheet of paper and brainstorm and collaborate together on these things that I need? I need a great title, a great subtitle, and an Amazon description. And I really want to test drive it before I send it out there. So task groups are really, really a helpful way to get together. The Inklings ended, I guess most people, when they look at the record, they would say they just sort of petered out. There was a small group of individuals when the group ended that continued to get together once a year. But the group as a group kind of ended in a very unofficial and unceremonious way. No one showed up. And that was the end of the group. And why that happened and why the group ran out of steam, there's a lot of theories about that. The best answer is their time was over. Their work was done. Right? That the function of that group, the purpose of the group had come to an end. And that's okay. That's fine. It's okay to say this was great for a season and now we're in a different season. But there was one factor that I think was part of that, and that's a fellow named Hugo Dyson. And Hugo Dyson, one of the original, early members of the group, he did not like Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings. And that's okay. You can be a really great help and support of a work that you don't like, right?
Yep.
But the way you go about it is the issue. So here's what Hugo Dyson did. He basically, when Tolkien would start to read it, he would roll his eyes and put his hand out and say, I don't want to hear it. Oh God, no, I've had enough of that. And then Tolkien would put his manuscript away. And that was the end of it. No one could get him to take a risk again.
Right.
And what he did was not critique. This is so important, you guys. What he did was not critique, because Lewis had been brutal with critique. These guys, man, you need to read in Bandersnatch about how they insulted each other and how they went for the throat in their criticism. So it wasn't criticism. What Dyson did wasn't criticism, because criticism is an act of love.
Yeah.
Brae, if I read your novel and I go, I have to tell you, these chapters 3 and 4, they're limp, they're weak, that you need to tighten that up. I need more narrative here, and you're giving me, background information. That's an act of love. If I care about your work enough, that I give it that kind of careful attention, and if I care about you enough as a writer, that I say, I'm going to tell you the truth. Right? I'm not going to hold back. I'm going to be clear. I'm going to tell you what I see so that you can become the best you can be. That's an act of love and an act of courage.
Correct.
Yeah.
But if I say to you, it's not worth my time. There's nothing good about it. I don't want to hear it. Forget it.
Yep.
That goes to our hearts.
It does.
It's cruel.
And it is cruel. And how can you persist when people are giving you that kind? That's not feedback, that's dismissal.
Yep.
Right.
And so one of the keys of staying healthy, if you do get into the critique phase, which I think can be very helpful, is remembering the difference between helpful feedback and dismissal.
Right.
So let's say, hypothetically, I'm reading a horror novel and I don't like horror novels, right?
Yep.
I wouldn't say, this is not worth my time. I would say, you know what? It's not a genre that I respond to. It's not something that I can be helpful, because it's not the kind of thing that I normally read, know a lot about, and enjoy. I'd love to hear from you how I can help you.
Right.
But I can't help your book. It's just not a good fit for what I like and what I do.
Yep.
That's true for me for fiction, by the way. I've got people all the time, even in our writing group, who write fiction, and they want me to give them feedback. And the fact is, I don't read much fiction.
Right.
And my advice won't be very helpful, because I'm not the intended audience for that work. Yeah. And so instead of saying, I don't think this book is any good, or I don't think this book is worth doing, or I didn't like it, it's better for me to kind of graciously say, I'm not the best reader for your work, but let me know how I can help and support you in the process. Can I pray for you? Can we set up some accountability? Can I help you with beginning your marketing? What can I do for you that will help you to engage with this vision? And how can I connect you with people who can do that critique work in the best possible way?
That's so good.
Right. Because you've not dismissed the person in the process.
Yes, Jill, exactly. That's right.
So I'm going to mark you down off my list for
reading his last horror book.
Beta reading my horror novel. Okay, got it. Check.
I have to tell you, there are I've been reading his book, but there are chapters he won't give me because I can't read horror. So I can't read chapters 1. I can't read chapters 4. But I can read the others. But it's true.
See, that's so good of you, because you're giving him your authentic self, not your pretend self.
Yeah.
Right, and he's protecting me as well.
So
it's two-way street, because he knows what I can take, what I can handle. So yeah.
Beautiful.
So Diana, I heard a podcast recently. It was on Pints with Jack, I think.
Yes. Yeah, that was a great, boy, we went for 2 hours in that conversation. That was amazing.
Yeah, it was awesome. And one of the stories you had was, and I wanted you to share, was the time that you were booed off the stage. Can you share that real quick?
I love this. I'm meeting you for the first time, and the first story that you ask for is my big failure. Yeah, I see how you are. I see how you are. Oh my goodness.
It was just funny.
We have to keep it real here, right? Because you have great success, but we just want to hear about your failures. No.
Wow, you guys. Okay.
Human.
I think I said something about honesty being a courageous gift of love. So I guess I have to live as if that's true, right? So when I started investigating the Inklings, like I said, my driving questions were, what did they say to each other? What difference did it make for them in their creative work? And I was still in high school when I was writing about these questions. My first writing about the Inklings was a book report that I wrote in 11th grade. And that book report was a critique of a book by a guy named Humphrey Carpenter, who wrote what at the time was pretty much the only book about the Inklings. And in that book, Humphrey Carpenter argues vehemently and emphatically that the members of this group, 19 men who met twice a week for 17 years, had no influence on each other. And, you know, I'm in 11th grade and I read that and I see he's got a whole chapter proving that they had no influence on each other. And I thought, that can't be right. You know, I'm so sorry, but that can't be right. Why would they meet? Why would they critique? Why would they keep bringing pages if it wasn't making any difference? And I thought something is weird here. And one of the things that Humphrey Carpenter quotes in his book, which in many ways is really an outstanding book about the group, but one of the things he says is that someone wrote a letter to C.S. Lewis and asked whether he influenced The Lord of the Rings. Mm-hmm. And Lewis wrote back, and what Lewis said was, no one ever influenced Tolkien. You might as well try to influence a Bandersnatch. Yeah. And so that became the touchstone for all discussions of the Inklings prior to my work, all of it.
Yeah.
Again and again, everybody kept saying no influence. See, because C.S. Lewis said, no one ever influenced Tolkien, you might as well try to influence a Bandersnatch. And so I started to question that because it didn't seem true to me. And so I started pressing into it. But the problem was, in Inkling studies, being an American is considered a little suspicious compared to being British, right? And being female in a scholarly field at the time I was working was also considered a little suspicious. So I was disqualified. I was also a teenager. So, like, who's gonna, right? Nobody's going to listen to me. So when I started, when I was in college, when I was in my early 20s, I started questioning these assumptions. What does he mean by influence? How influenceable is a Bandersnatch?
Yeah.
Why does he say, you might as well try to influence a Bandersnatch? That sounds like a joke. It doesn't sound like a deep literary analytical response.
Right.
It sounds like a guy insult, you know?
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Because what do we know about Bandersnatches? Bandersnatches are quick and they're ornery, right? So he's saying, you know, my buddy, he was ornery. You try to give him some feedback and he would snarl, you know? Yeah. You try to give him some advice and he'd weasel out of it.
Yeah.
But then I started thinking, when I get advice on something that I've done, my first reaction isn't, why, thank you. I will immediately do exactly what you told me to do on this thing that I've been working on for 20 years, because obviously you know better than I do what I'm supposed to do next, right? Right? We don't do that. No. Even if the critique is right and we know it's right, what's our first response? No, wait a minute. You don't understand what I'm trying to do here.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
So we have a Bandersnatch impulse. No, wait, you don't know. Yeah. But then what happens after that flash of resistance? What happens when we go home? What
Yeah.
happens 2 days later? What happens as we ponder and pray? We think, they might have a point. Maybe I could just fiddle with it a little bit.
Yep.
And that's exactly what Tolkien did.
Yep.
Behind the scenes, he is implementing great gallons of all of this advice he's getting, but he's not going back to the guys and saying, sorry, I blew my top when you first told me that. You were right and who does that, right? Yep. But it has a great impact. And by impact, they didn't mean imitation. Tolkien's work didn't become more like Lewis's work. Right. Tolkien's group became more like Tolkien's group, own work. Yeah. Lewis's work becomes more Lewisian.
Right.
As there are people around him telling them how to become more authentically themselves. Yeah. So it's not imitation, and it's not necessarily an initial response. So these were some of my first ideas on this topic. And so I wrote papers about it, and I went to conferences, and I talked with people about these ideas. And the very first paper I ever gave, at the end of it, at an academic conference, you usually get polite applause.
Yeah.
At the end of it, I got booed. I got literally. And then at another conference, not too much longer after that, I was talking specifically about C.S. Lewis and his collaboration with Joy Davidman on Till We Have Faces.
Yeah.
And as soon as I said my last line from my academic paper, a woman stood up in the back of the room and she wagged her finger at me and she said, C.S. Lewis was a genius and he didn't need any help from anybody. And I was dumbfounded, because at academic conferences you don't.
Yeah, you're like, what do you do? Exactly. You're like, okay.
Yeah. But the thing is, look at the assumption. If you're a genius, you don't need anybody. Where does that? Where is the scripture that says, as long as you're smart enough, you can become independent and self-sufficient? I can't find it.
Nope.
What it says is we all need each other.
Yeah.
And in fact, the more rich the gifts that God has given us, the more we need other people to make sure those gifts aren't squandered.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. And so that's the idea. And so my beginning in this field was very discouraging. I had people who were very resistant. And even now I run into it from time to time. It's like, are you saying they needed help? And I'm saying, no, I'm saying that just like everybody else, they needed a network of resonators to help them realize the things that were in their heart and to bring those out in the best possible way and the best possible time according to God's design.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah, the fact that you started off, as you said, this was the beginning of your career. It started with this opposition, and then where you are today shows the power of community and resonators and in your life, right? Because you could have, after the booze or the finger wagging, you could have gone, it's not worth it.
Right.
But you're living proof that all of that is very, very, very powerful, and powerful today, as powerful today as it was for them and for every other artist throughout history, right?
Yeah, well, the reason what Diana, I wanted to bring that up was not to point out these booing things that this horrible trauma that you went through, but was the fact that you were resilient through it. You were you pushed through it. You knew what you knew to be true, and you, regardless of the mockers, regardless of the ones that are drawing people and pulling them down, that all of us as writers will have to face in our life.
Yes.
And that's the ultimate reason why I wanted you to bring that up, because I want to have encouragement on the flip side of this for those that are battling it right now, whether their mom is not supportive and they're saying that's stupid, stop writing, or their husband's not supportive or their wife's not supportive, whatever it is that they're not getting support from, that they know it to be true because God placed it inside of them. Right. He said, whoever your name is, you have a book inside of you. You have something to say, and I want to pull that out of you, and so they can stay encouraged, because where you are now is different from where you were then, and you stayed true with the calling that you received in your heart. You knew it to be true.
That's right. That's right. You know, I had a chance to chat with one of our incoming students from APU, really excited about the incoming class. It's going to be attending classes online and still are committed to being connected and part of our living learning community at Azusa Pacific. So I was chatting with this young man, and he said, how long did it take you to write that first book? I said, 23 years. He said, how do you keep on one research paper for 23 years? And I said, you know, I'm sure there's a fancy answer, but I'll give you the only thing that I know. It's two things. First of all, it's discernment. And second of all, it's building a network of people who will support me in the process. So discernment is that process that all of us should be going through every morning of our lives as believers, where we say, God, what do you want me to do today?
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
what do you want me to do today? Should I work on this? Should I put this aside? Is it under the chicken for a while? Is there something new? How should I be devoting my time, talent, and energy today?
Right.
You know, and then the very best you can doing what God has for you in that day, in that moment, and so on. So that's discernment. And as near as I could tell, God wanted me to continue to work on this book. And I am telling you, there were some dark nights of the soul where when God said that, I did not say, oh, thank you, dear Lord, blessed God, can't wait. No, I said, do you know what you're asking? You know, are you sure about that? I did, because I think we can ask. And God was very persistent. Today, work on this book. So I worked some of those days praying that if I just did it well enough that day that, you know, the next day God would say, okay, now you're off the hook.
You take a break.
But it didn't look like it. So discernment's really important. But then support what you guys do with Kingdom Writers. What your members are learning to do is they get together one-on-one for a walk or a Zoom call or a coffee date at Starbucks. You need people who are like, yeah, I hear you. Yeah, you got this.
Yep.
And yeah, I'm not going anywhere. I'm hanging in there with you through the ups and downs of this process.
Right.
And yeah, it's hard, but I'm going to connect you with mentors. I'm going to share with you my own experience so that you know that it's not a smooth path. It's an up and down and back and forth kind of thing. That no matter how talented you become or how many awards you win, you're going to have projects where it is like slogging through mud to get 100 words written in a day. And that's okay, because that too is the process. Because I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I think that God cares more about building character and obedience in me than he does about how many words I got written in a given day.
Exactly. I find it that I love being close to God through my process, working it out through my process, than actually, you know, the completed work. And I miss that intimate time with God. Yeah.
You know, the completed work of God is you, right?
Yeah.
It's not, the book is a means that God uses to work on our character. And so even on those days when the words aren't flowing and we're just showing up and we're being faithful to be obedient to God, we can be confident that God is doing an amazing work, and that work is in the eternal. It's in that part of us that lives forever. It's in shaping our character.
Yeah. Diana, I got one more, if you've got time for it. I just want you to say the one more story, and it is about J.R. Tolkien writing Lord of the Rings.
Sure.
The pressure that he received from the publisher, and his meeting with C.S. Lewis because of that.
Yeah, I would love to tell that story. It's one of my favorites. So people sometimes ask, how do you know for sure that the Inklings made a difference? And I always come back to the story because it's the most dramatic example of how one lunch and one comment from one friend can completely change the trajectory of a work.
Wow.
So Tolkien wrote The Hobbit, and it was very successful. So the publisher was like, we love it. It's great. It's selling. Write us another book that's exactly the same except different, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what publishers do.
Yeah.
And Tolkien went back and forth with the publisher many times and said, I don't have any more Hobbit stories. I have no ideas. I got nothing. I don't want to do this. And the publisher just kept bugging him. And finally he says, okay, I'll give it a try. And if you think about the early chapters of The Lord of the Rings, that's exactly what Tolkien is doing. He's like, okay, hobbits, birthday party, silly jokes, fireworks, Gandalf, you know, I don't know, you know, he's really kind of just fiddling with it. And he tries, he puts in a good faith effort to make a story happen. But, you know, as a fiction writer, you all know, you know, whether it's a movie or whether it's a book, a story has to somehow get traction at some point.
Yeah.
Right? You can't just be writing dialogue and then they did this and then they did this and then it's you know, but that's where Tolkien starts. He starts with what he knows, and he hopes and prays that as he works, somehow there'll be an epiphany. Yeah. You know, that Tolkien wrote Lord of the Rings in his garage on a desk that was piled high with papers and surrounded by papers. So there he is, night after night. He's writing after his kids go to bed, and he's trying to make this story go somewhere, and he can't. So he has lunch with C.S. Lewis, and he says, I hate the story, Lewis. I mean, Jack, help me. I am giving up. I'm going to write to the publisher tomorrow, and I'm going to say, this is pointless. There's no reason for me to continue this. I just can't do it. I don't have a story. And Lewis nods, and he listens, and he says, I know why your story is failing, and I know what you need to do. Tolkien is quite surprised because he hasn't asked for advice. He's just been fuming and complaining. He said, so Tolkien says, okay. And Lewis says this. He says, here's the problem. Hobbits are only interesting when they are in un-hobbit-like situations.
Exactly.
And Tolkien has been writing a Hobbit story, birthday parties, fireworks, bad jokes, you know. Hobbits are only interesting when they're in un-hobbit-like situations.
Right.
But this is one time when he didn't Bandersnatch on him. He didn't like claw back.
Yeah.
He just thought, right? What an interesting idea. And so he goes home, and that night, again, he's puts the children to bed, goes to the garage, sitting at his desk, and he pulls out the scene he had written the day before. And the scene he had written the day before, the last scene he had written, was the scene where the four little hobbits are going along the road. They hear hoofbeats. Excuse me. They hear hoofbeats coming. They're afraid. They hide under the tree roots. Remember that from the movie?
Yeah.
And then the horse comes up, and in the draft Tolkien had written, the horse comes up, there's a laugh, and the rider throws back his hood. He's a white hood on a white horse, and it's Gandalf who's come to reconnect with the hobbits and go the next length of the journey. So Tolkien reads this, and he looks at it, and he rewrites it. And this time, all that he's thinking of is hobbits are only interesting when they're in un-hobbit-like situations. And so the hobbits are traveling along the road. They hear hoofbeats. They hide under the tree. The horse is black. The rider is black. The rider doesn't laugh. The rider snuffles as if he's looking for something.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, with this scene, a number of things happen. First of all, now in terms of the narrative, Gandalf is still missing, so we've got to figure out where Gandalf is. That's an important narrative thread.
Right.
But then there's a bigger one. Who is this guy? And why is he interested in the little hobbits? This is now very un-hobbit-like. Added a threat, right? And Tolkien at this point doesn't know what a Black Rider is. He doesn't know what a Nazgul is. All he knows is all of a sudden we've kicked this up to the next level. Right. And from that point, the gears kind of mesh and the story kind of moves forward, because narrative moves forward as you have problems you need to solve.
Yeah.
And so he is trying to work out, who is this thing? Where's Gandalf? Why is this more than just a little trinket that something like this rider would be interested in it? And the story flows from there. Now, he gets discouraged at a couple of other points, but this is the story that changes the trajectory. So you think about The Hobbit, a children's fable, basically.
Right.
At the beginning of The Lord of the Rings, a children's fable, basically. And here's the pivot. All of a sudden now he's writing an epic.
Yes.
And it changes everything because it shifts the genre, the voice, and more importantly, it changes his own experience as a writer. He says the book has taken off in unforeseen directions. And he can't wait to get to his desk every night and find out what's going to happen next.
What's going to happen next? Wow. Isn't that awesome? I mean,
Love
one lunch with someone.
One lunch.
One lunch, guys.
One sentence.
One lunch,
one sentence can change your life and the lives of millions of others.
Yeah.
As you move in your destiny.
It changed it from a children's fairy tale to an epic, like you said. Like, it's epic.
It's epic.
It is.
It is. And it's just a kind of a funny sentence even. Yeah. It wasn't even like brilliance upon, you know what I mean? They just seem to be in Hobbit-like, situations.
Uh-huh.
I love it.
And he needed that spark from his friend to ignite the fire that was already there inside of him.
Right.
It was already there in Tolkien. And C.S. Lewis pulled it out of him. And that's the power of community. That's the power of getting together. That's the power of kicking the can around with each other. The ideas and with your group. And your group's been meeting for a long time, right? Like,
yeah, we've been meeting for more than 20 years. So it's been a powerful thing. But, I think that's influence. People people say, no, there was no influence. Nobody ever influenced Tolkien. I'm like, really? That seems to me to be a pretty blatant example of influence. But then when you add to that encouragement, expectation, and all of the other ways that they interacted, there's tremendous influence among the group. And that's what I talk about in my book.
Wow. So Diana, what are you working on now? What's your next project that you've got cooking?
Well, I do have this project that is really, I am slogging through. But that's not what I'd like to really share with you at this point. Is the one of the later stages of the writing process is helping to get the word out. So about 10 years ago, I published a book called Clay in the Potter's Hands. And I don't know if you can see that.
Yep.
And it is a devotional that uses the idea that God is at work in our lives in much the same way that a potter works with clay. This is an image that's in scripture starting in the book of Genesis all the way through to the epistles.
Yeah.
And I think that the more we understand about the creative process, about clay, about potters, the more we understand that in each different season of our lives, God is at work in some particular ways. And so that's the nature of the book. I published it 10 years ago. It's done extremely well. And I've been excited in the last year to work with a new designer to issue a leader's guide, a workbook, and then just literally weeks ago, we got a Spanish translation and a Spanish workbook. Oh my gosh, yeah, look at this.
That's awesome. Yes.
I'm typing this in the notes field, by the way, for the comment section for everyone to see.
So, thank you. And also, we have an audiobook. We just finished recording and vetting an audiobook. So we're re-releasing all of this.
Yeah.
I've been at this for a while, but I've never done a formal, structured book release.
Right.
And I'm really excited about trying this for the first time, but I'm also intimidated too. So we're looking to put together a launch team. And I hope that maybe some of your members might be willing to come alongside, because I need advice and I need encouragement.
Yes.
And I need resonators as I go into this launch. So we hope that the books will be released on September 1st, but we're doing our book launch in the middle of September, the week of September 14th. And if people are interested in joining the book launch, they can send an email. And the email address is godisnotdaunted@gmail.com. And if they send an email to that and they say, I'm interested in helping Diana with her book launch, we will send an electronic version of Clay in the Potter's Hands, so you can see the book, you can read it, you can get familiar with it.
Yeah.
And then what we're asking our launch team to do is during that midweek in September, help us by posting some reviews, by sharing some materials on social media.
Yep.
There's a big part of this that we're really hoping for. So it's a devotional. It has questions at the end. There's a great leader's guide that my friend Bethany wrote. This is a great personal devotional for personal reflection, but it really comes alive within a group. And so we're really hoping to get the names of pastors, Sunday school teachers, ministries, discipleship groups, and those kinds of things where this, something like this, material that is vibrant, scriptural, accessible, might be a great resource for a small group or for a mentoring or discipleship relationship. And especially in churches that have Spanish speakers and English speakers, because they can each have the book in their own language, same book, two languages. And then there's a workbook that has the English and Spanish side by side, so they can be literally on the same page as they're pulling together to discuss the insights in this book.
That is fantastic, Diana. And guys, I want you, KWA, I want you to get involved with this as much as possible. Two things. You're supporting a kingdom writer. You are becoming a resonator. You are learning the process of pouring into somebody else. And you're part of reaching more people for Christ. You're a part of encouraging the body. And the second part is you are learning what it takes on what it would be like to do something for you when you get ready to launch your book. And so it's twofold. And the first thing is important because we need to sow into this kingdom writer, and you'll have other kingdom writers that you're going to sow into and support. But you're also going to learn through this process. And I'm very excited that Diana offered that and put this out there for us, because that is a blessing. I
want to throw in something personal as well. I rededicated my life as a Christian at a potter's field ministry, and it was the potter and the clay that changed everything for me and started the trajectory of my life. So I know, I am personally aware of how important this message is and how transformational it is. And that's when you were saying that, I was like, oh man, this is going to be good. It changed everything for me. It changed everything for me, because I had gotten saved when I was 27 at an Amway meeting, where I heard the gospel for the first time and accepted it, but I didn't do anything with it because I didn't know any better. And then fast forward many, many years later, and I heard that message and I went, now I get it. And it just so touched me personally that it changed everything for me. So I see the value in it, and it's very exciting what you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much. I think that you're going to really like it because of the visual component. But what we're finding is, usually a book has a kind of sweet spot in terms of the audience being a certain kind of age or a certain kind of type of person. This book has been used by chaplains in hospitals with people who are older. This has been used by Sunday school teachers with children, and children instantly understand it because it's so visual. And everything in between. And so we're finding this, and it shouldn't be a surprise to me, because God reveals God's self to us through this image. So if God came up with a metaphor, it must be a good one, right?
Yes. It must be a good one.
Yes, and it's so personal, and it's so beautiful.
We're gonna be Jill and I will personally commit to being a part of that, and we love what you're doing, and it's all about reaching more people, and so we're excited for you, and just getting it repackaged and doing something very formal. And I know, because I've done the same thing. Like, I've been very informal. I've just thrown this out, sometimes God has us like, no, I want you to sit down and plan this out and relaunch something
for such a time as this. Pull it out from under the chicken and set it straight. It's hatched or rehatched, but it's the right time.
Yeah, exactly.
I appreciate that so much. Most people are familiar with my scholarly work. Like I said, since I've been in 11th grade, I've been writing from the more scholarly side. When God gave me this book, I was surprised at the way that it unfolded and the way that, thousands and thousands of people have responded to the first edition. And now that we have this the additional support materials, I just can't wait to see what's going to happen. But I know that God is not daunted, but I'm daunted by the process of this aspect of the writing, the whole writing process, the aspect that I'm still trying to wrap my head around is this marketing or the publicity.
Yeah.
I feel very clumsy at it, and I don't really understand it very well. So this is my first attempt. And I know that I need those who are just those steps ahead of me, who can help to guide me through. I need mentors, and I need resonators, and I need prayer warriors too, because when you're doing something that is explicitly Christian and is helping people to understand God and to have a response, Jill, as you did, that's going to happen when people pray. That's a result of the prayers of God's faithful people.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. Well, we're going to end our time with you, Diana, but I want Jill to pray a blessing over you and to pray a blessing over this project that you're releasing.
Yes. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord, for what you are doing in and through Diana, and what you have done, the trajectory of her life. Thank you, God, that you have just marked her for something greater. You've marked her. And thank you, God, that she has followed your calling even through the dark nights of the soul, that she has pressed on. And thank you, God, that you have provided those resonators around her. Thank you for her mama and for all of those who have come around her. Thank you for the books that she has already released that have touched so many, and the books that she has yet to release. Especially the one that she's slogging through, God.
Yeah.
We ask for breakthrough in that. We ask for breakthrough, God, that you would supernaturally expedite that for her, God, in a supernatural way. And we know that she works with you, and we know that you are working in her. And so we thank you for what is to come through that particular book. Yeah. And we thank you, God, for what she is doing right now, through the campaign that she is starting, and that God is not daunted, that she's got this all set up for her, to reach the masses. Thank you, God, that she has that you have done your work through the clay in the potter's hands, and yet you are still regenerating it and renewing it and bringing new life to it, and helping her with this campaign. God, thank you for those on this live feed right now that have already said that they're all in to this and will help her. And thank you for those in the broader communities that will come alongside her as well, to get it to the hands of all that need to see this and read this. God, thank you that those who do read this book, Clay in the Potter's Hands, or hear it, will be moved as I have been moved by this same story, the same visual, the same scriptures, God, that it will cause them to walk in a greater measure of their identity. It will cause them to make a decision for Christ.
Thank you, God.
And that we can't even see the impact yet, but we know how great it is. And so we bless Diane. We bless Diana with every project, every place she and I'm hearing, everywhere you put your feet, I have given you that territory. Everywhere your feet go, I will give you that territory. And you have been so faithful to put your feet into the next thing and to keep walking. And he is giving you the territories everywhere you put your feet, because of your faithfulness and because of his. And we thank you, God, for everything you're doing, everything you've already done, and everything you are yet to do.
Thank you, God.
And we bless you in Jesus' name.
In Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you so much, friends. It's really a joy to connect.
Yeah,
for us too.
It is so amazing. What an amazing morning to be with you, and to talk about writing, to talk about collaboration, to talk about community, to talk about loving what we do and loving what we've been called to do, and that it's worth the fight, guys. That it's worth the fight. It's worth it. You know.
Yeah. You are an inspiration for all of us. And post-COVID, we'd love to get together and give you a great big hug for all that you're doing and all that you're bringing and all that you've brought to our group today.
Yeah.
Well, I can't wait. And in the meantime, let's not let COVID make us strangers. Let's keep in touch as we're able, shall we?
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we shall. Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
So we're going to linger behind to talk to the KWA folks, and Diana, you can end on your end. And
all right.
We love you.
We love you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. This has totally been a blessing to me, and I'm very excited to see what God is going to do next. Thank you.
So good. It's going to be so good.
All right, guys, go see DianaGlyer.com. You can go and find out all about her books and more about her ministry and about her as an author and a contributor to the kingdom.
That link is in the comment section for you all. And of course, so is the Gmail for you to connect. God is not daunted at gmail.com. Send her an email and connect, and let's help her do this thing for the kingdom. Come on.
I'm literally in tears. Like, this is just such a healthy conversation, such a great time together as a community, and
it's Brae read this book so long ago, Bandersnatch, and
I finally found the book I was looking for.
And that's it, because he had been reading a bunch of different books, and he came back to me with this one. He goes, this is it. And it touched him. Diana's words touched him and impacted his life so greatly, right? And he has in turn brought what he has learned and brought that to you, and it just keeps going. So for him, especially, to have Diana here today was such an incredible treat. But that's the way the kingdom works, That's the way kingdom works. He would never have guessed in a million years that he's reading this book, the book that actually makes an impact for him, that years later he would be sitting with the author and sharing her with you, and that is so kingdom and so beautiful.
For years, I people argued saying that the Inklings, C.S. Lewis and J.R. Tolkien, they didn't influence one another, because there was these statements that Diana was talking about, how they said, trying to influence him is like, trying to influence a Bandersnatch. But so people would argue, even with me, when I post on there saying, hey, the Inklings, they changed each other's lives and they affected one another. And I still had people arguing, saying it's proven. They would say it's proven based off of writings that was not the truth. They said they discounted them influencing their books at all. And when I found Bandersnatch, I was just, this is it. This is what I'm talking about. And just the love of what Diana put into the book is incredible. And to pull out the writings and just share in the stories today, like, with C.S. Lewis telling J.R. Tolkien unhobbit situations, that influences book. There's no way around it. And the fact that these resonators, these Inklings got together, they were influencing one another. And it was affecting their work, and it wasn't changing their voice. It was enhancing who they already were. It was pulling out the gold, is what we call.
Yeah.
And so that's what KWA is all about, guys. We want to continue to pull the gold out of you, and for you to go after what you've been called to write, whatever that is. Whether it's a horror story that I never thought I would ever write,
that he's not writing for Christians,
and I'm not writing for Christians. I'm going after the one, guys. And so some Christians aren't going to understand what I'm doing, but I've had it under the chicken for a while now, and
you're taking a great risk to do it.
I felt like I just needed to do it, and there's something inside of me, guys. It's personal, where I'm like, I was an atheist. So I just want to let you guys know, I was an atheist. I hated God. I didn't believe in God. And now where I'm at now is I want to go after those hearts. I want to go after those hardened hearts that don't care about God, don't believe in God. And I want to give God an opportunity through a horror story to open up the hearts of men and women, and for them to have that opportunity to hear the message of good news from God. And can you do it through a horror book? I believe so. And that's the risk that I'm going for. So pray for me. And again, when this book is released, it's called The Embalmer, by the way. So you guys are, not freaked out what happened to Brae. He lost his mind. I'm not going to be advertising this for Christians. I'm going to have a rated R, thing on there. It's not for Christians, although there are Christians that are going to want to read it. But my marketing side of things is not towards Christians.
And there are Christians that may want it for their unsafe friends.
And yes,
they may want to recommend it for
yes,
their unsafe friends.
yes.
And but we pray that you'll have grace for this project, because it is quite different.
Yeah,
And
way different.
but you know what? We're all stepping into what God is calling us to do. Yeah. So what is he calling you to do?
Go for it.
Is he calling you to do something traditionally Christian? Is he calling you to do something like Lewis or Tolkien? Is he calling you to do a science fiction or a spoken word that addresses the issues of the day?
Go for it.
Yeah.
I thought, just like Diana was talking about with one of her members in her group, I thought I was only going to be writing epic fantasy books. I wrote 3, and then I wrote a children's book, and then I wrote Demons and Thieves, a historical fiction, and then I wrote the Kingdom Writers devotional, and now I'm writing a horror story. So it's so mind-boggling where God just positions us and moves us along in our lives. You never even thought you would ever go to. It never even in my mind. And so I want you to understand and be encouraged that God will move you and position you where you need to be. Remember, he's the author and finisher of our faith, guys.
And he's very orderly. So, fantasy action is Brae's thing. He loves that genre. And so he had him start with that, right? And then when he started with that, then he stretched him a little bit more out of his comfort zone. He would never have given him this horror book in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
He had to take you through this process.
I needed to be trained and prepared.
So he's very orderly.
Yeah.
And
so he's training and preparing each one of us where we're at, guys. Some of you haven't even started your book. That's okay. Kick that can around. It's under the chicken. Now that'll become a term around here. But eventually we got to put our butt in the chair. B plus C. We got Lynn Vincent's formula. And if you haven't read her blog, read that blog. Talks about the formula in depth. Mm-hmm. And so we're really excited for the future, guys. We're excited to be running with you guys. Get the word out about Kingdom Writers Association. Let others know about this group.
YouTube.
And we're also on YouTube. You can become a subscriber for Kingdom Writers Association. And also our ministry, Kingdom Creativity International, is the umbrellas, our nonprofit organization that Jill and I are the pastors for the creatives. And KWA is anchored underneath the umbrella of KCI. So you guys understand what that is. And we have a YouTube channel for Kingdom Creativity International. And Jill and I go live every Wednesday night on our Kingdom Creativity International Facebook group page. We have about a 20-30 minute message. It's an encouraging message. Mm-hmm. And it's called Backstage Pass. And so we invite you to join us for that. Every Wednesday night we go live. And
6:55 we start off spotlighting an artist. And in a variety of expressions.
Yeah.
So, and then we go into our topic of conversation, and as we talk with God, kind of behind the veil, right?
Yeah.
As his VIP, getting to go backstage with our Master Creator, and then our prayer is that when we sign off, that you will continue the conversation backstage. With him.
Yeah. So we love you guys. We bless you in Jesus' name, and we will see you next month. September 12th, we will have Dr. Mark Stibbe from the UK, and that's going to be awesome as well. So we look forward to seeing you guys in a month. And please be interactive and active on our Facebook group page. Ask questions, share videos, whatever it is on your heart that's related to writing. If your post does not get accepted, it's because it probably doesn't relate to writing. or encouraging the writers. So we were asked to limit it to that. So
yeah, we're staying away from political on that. On that side of things too.
Yeah, we're staying anchored with Christ behind the veil, not in front of the veil with any political type stuff. So, all right, we love you guys. Have fun writing, and be good to one another. And let's go change the world.
Come on, love you guys.